there, and welcome to the latest edition of Nebraska Football Now. I'm your host, Andy Classen, joined by our Husker insider, Jake Bartecki. Jake, let's start with the positives. You were there. You witnessed it all. Back in black, AC/DC. It was quite the scene. For the viewing audience at home, I can only imagine what it was like being down on the field.
It was quite the atmosphere, yeah. I mean, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that that was going to work, I thought. I think there were a lot of people that said there were going to be some people who were diehard, I wear red to every game. There was none of that. That stadium was exactly what they all did. It was completely blacked out. The Back in Black intro was awesome. I know a lot of Iowa fans think they might be the only team to have black uniforms and use Back in Black as their intro, but I don't think they are. Nebraska nailed it. Tip of the cap to Troy Dan and the athletic staff and the marketing team for that. That was outstanding.
Well, let's get to the game. There was a lot of positives, especially the way the game started with USC. I think there's two sides of this game, the before and the after the Dylan Raiola injury.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think one constant the entire way through was Emmett Johnson was fantastic again. I mean, he had almost 30 carries, 165 yards, and found the end zone again for a touchdown. And I thought the play calling was really, really strong while Dylan Raiola was in the game. They took a few shots, not necessarily, bombs downfield, but Dane Key makes that touchdown grab on the opening possession, which that drive was artistic by Dana Holgorsen. You mixed in the pass, you mixed in a little bit of the off-tackle run, you hit him with a gut punch right up the gut with Emmett Johnson, and you kind of did your bread and butter in the pass game with the screens to Isaiah Hunter and then hit Dane Key, who just tiptoed his way in on the pylon. That was a phenomenal drive, and I think the defense, I mean, it took Jaden Mayava to really, it took him some time to complete a pass. I think it was under 3 minutes when he completed his first pass of the ball game in that first quarter. And it was his worst completion percentage. They had him flustered, 2 intentional groundings in that first half. They weren't necessarily knocking him down, but they were forcing the errant throws and getting him frustrated. Both sides of the ball, Nebraska played great in that first half, and then unfortunately, you get that interception by Andrew Marshall, which was a heck of a play and a great read, and tip of the cap to John Butler for a great scheme there. You feel like you're really knocking on the door of putting that game away. You're up 8 at that point.
Yep.
And then Dylan Raiola goes down. I mean, there's talk of the hip drop tackle, which it looked like there was some of that there.
Yeah.
And broken fibula, surgery will be this week in New York. He will not be traveling to UCLA. You're not supposed to fly after surgery, which is interesting that it's in New York in that degree. But, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for Dylan Raiola in the respect that he's, obviously still very young. It's tough to have that big of an injury when you're that young. Yeah. He'll heal. He'll get back out there. He'll probably come back and be a quarterback again. I think he most definitely will.
Sure.
But it was unfortunate, and you just felt the air of that facility just be let out, and the play calling changed.
Yeah, and with that, you saw the play calling actually change. What were your first impressions of Latif? I think some good, some bad. He looked like a freshman to me.
Yeah, 5 of 7 through 7 yards. So he didn't throw many incompletions. I think what he brings to the table, and we all knew this, and we saw it, and that was the scouting report on him even before he took the field against Akron for his first appearance, is he brings the run game, right? Yeah. I mean, he brings his legs, and that's what Dylan Raiola doesn't have. Raiola actually did take off a couple of times against USC, but, right away, the throw that Latif wanted to make wasn't there. He took off and ran and picked up 12 yards for a first down. And the offensive line, I think, is going to have to be able to block better, and I think the wide receivers are going to have to be even better at blocking on the exterior simply because you're going to have a quarterback that's going to run outside. I think the one thing I noticed the most, and this is probably a negative, and it's totally understandable, nerves. You could see it when he got his helmet on the sidelines. I know he seemed ready to go, but there were just basic things like exchanging the snap, especially out of the shotgun. I mean, he bobbled a few. He had the fumble on the Barney play where Barney probably walks in. But even right under center, you'd see him looking elsewhere when he'd take the snap. And I think it proved that right now, in this exact moment, TJ Latif probably isn't ready to be your number one option. And that's okay, right? I mean, he wasn't supposed to be your number one option. But I think this week against UCLA will be a much better environment. I think he's going to have a lot of family there, so that'll obviously be special for him. He's a Compton native. And I think just the setting, right? I mean, it's the Rose Bowl, but it's going to be quiet. I don't think there's going to be many UCLA fans there making a lot of noise. I know he was at home, but that was a tough atmosphere to play in, especially for your first appearance. Well, not your first appearance, but first Big Ten appearance.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. There's a difference between the mindset of, oh, be ready, you're one play away, and then you get thrown into it,
right,
versus I have a week to prepare, I know what's coming, and yeah, a little bit of a homecoming as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's going to have a lot of family there, and I don't think this is going to be necessarily the hottest ticket in LA this weekend. No offense to UCLA or their fans, but just the way the season's gone for UCLA, I think it'll be easy for TJ Latif's family, who probably were already coming. I'm guessing that group might have multiplied a little bit now that he makes his first start. But Dana Holgorsen talked about it this week. You can't let that get to you. I mean, your mind still has to be on football.
You spoke of some fan frustration on the Iowa side as far as, back in black, AC/DC. There's also some frustrations, some outpour from the Husker fans, Husker Nation, after the game. And a lot of, even before fans were calling for Latif. Hey, let's get a dual threat quarterback in there. I will say, the young man is quick to say, I'm not a dual threat guy. I'm a pass first guy.
Sure.
He can run. He's got a great legs, good vision, and all those things. But he wants to evolve into a quarterback that is really looking to throw the ball first, much like Dylan. Do expectations change, or should they change with the fan base or with the coaching staff?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I kept telling myself, even though there were things to point at that caused those losses against Michigan, against USC. I'm not even going to throw Minnesota in there because there was so much wrong with that game. But beginning of the season, I don't know about you, but I didn't pick Nebraska to beat Michigan. I didn't pick Nebraska to beat USC. I had Nebraska at 8-4 with losses to USC, Penn State, Michigan, and I can't remember either Iowa or Minnesota. With Dylan Raiola, especially with the way Penn State is looking right now and all of that's in flux, 8-4 is still very much on the table.
Right.
Now it's not. In my opinion, I see Nebraska, and I'm not going to give away my prediction here, I see them winning one of the next three. They get to 7-5. They find themselves in a bowl game. Now, there's a lot of different, outlets out there that have different bowl projections, but it seems like the majority have them looking at the Music City Bowl, which Nebraska went in before they broke that bowl game drought. ReliaQuest Bowl, you could take on a team like Oklahoma, which would be a lot of fun. You could go to Vegas. And all of those are locations where I think Nebraska fans would travel to. The expectations as far as the play calling, I don't actually see them changing that much because we knew that Nebraska was going to run the ball a lot, right?
Yeah.
Emmett Johnson's still going to be your primary engine when it comes to the offense. Yeah. Now, I do think it needs to change in terms of throwing the ball downfield more, and Dana Holgorsen said those plays were called and they just didn't develop. You got to try, though. You got to try hard. You got to get the ball to guys like Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, look at the end of the season last year, how quickly he was able to turn those screen passes into 20 or 30-yard gains. They're going to try. I fully believe Nebraska will try things out against a defense for UCLA that's not that good, but I still think Nebraska will be a run-the-ball first team.
Well, speaking of the expectation with our new quarterback, some of our defensive players who have had to face off against him throughout the season during practice had some thoughts. Let's hear what Deshaun Singleton has to say.
I'm looking forward to see TJ this Saturday. I'm not even going to, lie to you. I'm looking forward to see him. Saying he's young, he's going to be in his hometown, and obviously his legs can bring a little bit more to the offense than usual. But man, I can't wait to see the young fella play. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Well, all right. He's excited. I think that's the right attitude to have going into this type of situation.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of support poured out for Dylan Raiola, right, from all of his teammates. We saw that the minute right after the game, but I think there's also been, and you saw it right there, Deshaun Singleton said, you said it, he's excited to watch him go play. I think there's a lot of support rallying around TJ. I mean, I know Dylan Raiola spoke to the team Tuesday morning, and he, I think, has as much faith in TJ Latif as anybody does. And I know he wants to travel to LA, and that's not going to happen. But I tell you what, I mean, this is good for Nebraska's defense as well, because what's been one of the problems for Nebraska's defense for a while now, not just this season, but it's defending a running quarterback.
Yeah.
This is a quarterback who is not afraid, if he doesn't like what he sees, even if he does like what he sees, to take off and utilize his speed. Nebraska doesn't get to see that all the time with Dylan Raiola, so I think that's really good for Deshaun Singleton and the Black Shirts.
Getting him ready, especially for a game like this. Yeah. Another guy that went to bat for our quarterback, head coach Matt Rhule. Let's hear what he had to say. Kind of pointing some pointed statements towards the fans.
If anyone says anything about Dylan, just know this. The kid had a broken leg, and he was warming up and begging me to play. That's all you got to know about that kid to know who he is.
Okay, I think that speaks to the type of player, the type of guy, the type of leader Dylan Raiola is, and what the coaches see in him and what they like about him.
Yeah, and I completely with Coach Rhule here. I'm going to be careful with how I say this because I think Nebraska's fans are the best fans in college football. Like, you're not going to see 90,000 packing out for a 3-win team like we saw a few years ago. But I was a little disappointed with the fans when I was kind of scrolling Facebook and scrolling social media after the game with so many people saying, well, if Dylan Raiola is walking around and jumping around and limping around on the sidelines, why can't he be in the game? Well, he couldn't be in the game because he had a broken leg.
Right.
And that's what Coach Rhule said. He wanted to be in the game while he had a broken leg. He can't, what's been the problem for Dylan Raiola, the biggest thing this season is he's getting sacked a lot. If you can't, Matt Rhule confirmed after the game that he couldn't run. If he can't try to evade sacks and extend plays, just imagine how many times he would have gotten sacked in that second half. And that's even, throwing away the part that he had a broken leg. And then you see a lot of people that are upset that he's not traveling to UCLA. Well, it's tough to travel. Air travel specifically after a surgery is not a good thing. So, I understand that there's a little bit of frustration from Nebraska fans in terms of they just haven't gotten that win. But they played well this weekend. Dylan Raiola is the reason, one of the main reasons, not just not the reason, but one of the main reasons this program has gotten back to relevancy, maybe not beating top 25 teams, but that's probably coming soon. He is one of the main reasons that they are back to relevancy. And if you have a different quarterback in there, we saw exactly what the result was.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those tweets that you may have saw, well, why didn't we see him come back in if he wanted to get back in? I think they could be taken back now knowing that he did have a broken
emotional
bone.
Tweets,
very emotional.
Liquid courage, maybe a little bit.
A little bit, and also, so that's kind of the beast, that the table that's been set. So I have a bit of empathy for the Husker fan base where we've been sold this, hey, it's year 3, everyone's picking 9 wins, some are saying 10 wins. So you're telling us these things are going to happen, and then they're not, whether it's a quarterback or not. Now that, people are getting paid, extensions are being made, the expectations need to come along with that. And I think Matt Rhule realizes that, and he's dealing with it just fine.
Yeah, I think what he said was perfectly fair. I don't think he called out the fan base. I don't think he showed frustrations with them. I think all of what he said there was defending his young quarterback, and that is exactly what you want to hear from your head coach.
Well, let's move forward here. We're heading out to L.A., the Rose Bowl. You brought up the defense. I think a lot is going to be put on their plate this week. It needs to be. Some of those seniors that are just been playing fantastic. Got to find another level, right? The defensive line, much has been made of stopping the run with good reason. A walk-on, we heard it all about it, a walk-on. Backup running back for USC ran for 129 yards. I get it, I understand it, but the whole body of work was pretty gosh darn good. And you can't deny the fact that our defensive line is young and we're a little bit undersized. So when you're stunting, you're blitzing, you're trying to do all these things to make up for those 2 shortcomings, you're going to get gashed here and there.
You saw flashes, though. Cade Petrock got in the backfield a few times. I feel like we talked about Williams Winery wreaking a lot of havoc in the backfield. He was there. And Nebraska didn't give up the 60-yard run that we've seen in the past. Now, you don't want to see 200 yards per rushing, and we've seen it too much this season. There's no doubt about that. So come this offseason, Nebraska's going to hit the portal really hard, and I feel like maybe try and shore up the interior of that defensive line. Because this team, if you have a Nash or a Ty, not even both, but just one of them, this record is probably different. The amount of rushing yards you're giving up per game is probably cut in half, right? Now, this weekend, you're going to see a rushing offense who's 18th, dead last in the Big Ten, but still averages over 100 yards per game. And John Butler talked about it. He really likes what he sees from the Bruins' run game. Now, a lot of that comes from a running quarterback. And Iamaleava, that's been his kind of game this season. And it's partially because the offensive line hasn't been very good. Sound familiar? And he has to take off a little bit, but he's got the ability to extend plays. And it's similar. He's similar to Bryce Underwood in that respect at Michigan, where if he doesn't like what he sees downfield, he will take off and run, and he's gashed teams before.
He sure has, whether it's at Tennessee or fast forward the last couple of weeks for UCLA, and they are coming off a bye. You brought up defensive coordinator John Butler. Let's hear from him and some of his thoughts at his latest presser.
Yeah, I mean, when I think you guys all understand this. You guys are all experienced reporters, but there's 11 guys out there on the field. We have 11 on defense. The second that the quarterback becomes a viable runner, the matchup's even. So what you're always trying to do then is you're trying to kind of get a half of a player towards somebody so you can get that extra half a player towards the quarterback. Because if you take your post safety out of the middle of the field and he's got the quarterback, then it turns into, bombs over Baghdad and they're just throwing the ball over you. So you're constantly trying to manipulate, that factor, because the quarterback as a runner is an equalizer. It's an equalizer in the run game because you got all the gaps filled. When the quarterback meshes the ball, he creates another gap that you've got to then find somebody. And you look at, like the other night, they were doing that with their quarterback, and we were bringing the corner, and he was then flipping the ball out to number one. Well, then we we adjusted, and they did that, and Marshall jumped back and made the play. So it's a constant cat and mouse game of, who's going to have the extra guy? Is it a blitz? Is it a run stunt? Are we going to show pressure to try to get him out of it? Are we going to, so there's a lot of things you have to do, and then credit to them that, they really hadn't run him out in the middle of the field as much. They were pretty much a red zone run team. But the way we were taking away the running back and tackling the running back like we were, that we really gave him no option.
Okay, so once again, Coach is saying the right things. We got to be better. We got to defend the run. Yes. What was your takeaway from what Coach had to say?
Well, I think my takeaway from the entire press conference is he was proud of his defense because I think they played really well against USC for the most part. I think the pass defense really got burned on a flea flicker, which was one of the most pretty delayed flea flickers I think I've ever seen executed. And the run game really suffered the most against the quarterback. Jaden Maiava took off and ran a few times, and some of those were designed, but a lot of them weren't. Nebraska's going to see a lot of that this weekend against UCLA, and they have to be ready for it.
Well, let's talk about UCLA and this new resurgence of this football team. And you can see it. Young Neuheisel's taken over. The Nico Neuheisel connection is really taken off. It has the feel to it that Nebraska might have to play a different team than what we saw on tape the first few weeks of the season anyway.
Feels like we've heard more about Jerry Neuheisel moving from tight end coach to offensive coordinator than we have about Tim Skipper replacing Deshaun Foster as interim head coach. This team's gotten much better since they fired Deshaun Foster, and it never seemed to work out with Deshaun Foster since UCLA moved into the Big Ten. I think one of their biggest wins last year was in Lincoln against Nebraska. Yeah. So they've gotten much better. I mean, their yards per game offensively has gone up. They've created more turnovers defensively. Nico Iamaleava's interception numbers and touchdown numbers have gone the right way on both sides. So they've gotten a lot better. That Penn State win, I think, was maybe just a sign of things to come for Penn State, and obviously, we saw what happened. But they throw out that Indiana game, and their numbers look completely different from when Deshaun Foster was still the coach. So this is a team that is not out of bowl contention. 3-5, they've got to win out, but I got a feeling they're going to be charged up.
I think you're exactly right, and I don't want to undersell that they're coming off of a bye.
Huge. Yeah, another team that Nebraska's going to face right off bye because USC was too.
And, the fan base out in the L.A. area, they don't have to watch baseball anymore because the Dodgers sewed up the World Series. Congratulations. One of those all-time instant classic type of series.
Boy, wasn't that great?
Yeah, it depends who you are. You also, point being that they're not going to be distracted, and there might be a lot more fans at the Rose Bowl than would have been if they still would have been in the World Series. What are your 3 keys to pull off a victory out in L.A.?
Number one, it's the same one that I led off with last week. Emmett Johnson. You got to get him his 20 carries at least. Like we talked about, I think the play calling and the pass game might change a little bit, but this is still going to be a run-first offense for Nebraska. Emmett Johnson, I think, is having a career year. I mean, he's on pace right now. He's already over 1,000 yards, but I think he's on pace to possibly be first-team All-Big Ten next to Justice Haynes. So that would be an amazing thing for Nebraska. He's got to be a big factor this weekend. Luke Lindenmeyer, I'm going to throw his name in for my second key. Use him as a safety net. He gets open in space a lot, and on short yardage third downs, if Nebraska does go to the air, instead of just taking off and trying to run out of bounds, take a hit, TJ Latif could look over the middle to Lindenmeyer or Harburg and just get the yards that's there for the first down, and maybe you get Lindenmeyer to turn into the bulldozer he's been with yards after catch to pick up that first down. And the last one for me is to make Nico Iamaleava beat you with his arm, not with his legs. We've talked all day about the running quarterback thing being a problem for Nebraska. Nebraska's secondary is the best part of their defense right now. Let them shine out in L.A.
That probably was the difference in this past ball game. The quarterback beat you with his legs again, just had no answer. Let's hear it. Predictions.
24-17 Nebraska. I know Nebraska, as we were recording this, are underdogs. Is that correct?
2.5 points.
Yeah, 2.5 points is interesting. I'm going to take Nebraska. I just think they might even have a little bit of a fan advantage there. There's a good number of Nebraska fans I know that live, maybe in Arizona that are making the trip up just because they want to see the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
I think Nebraska's going to get it done. I think the defense will make a couple plays late. Emmett Johnson, I think he'll have another big game. I know it feels like he's due for a clunker, but I think he might have gotten that out of the way in Minnesota. So I'm going to take Nebraska by a touchdown.
Okay. You want to hear my prediction?
I do.
Okay, well, I'm going to go big time here. 33-10. The Huskers are going to go in there with their hair on fire. I hear about the bye week. I hear about the fan base is going to show out. Now there's not going to be a baseball game in town. They're going to have to share fan bases and all that. Put all that to rest. Everybody's going to elevate their game. The Huskers are mad. They want to play for the guy next to him, and that is Dylan Raiola right now, one of their leaders, their captain. You also have some just stark realities. You just kind of breezed over it earlier in the show where you said UCLA's 18th in rushing. What does Nebraska have trouble doing? Stopping the run.
Yeah.
What helps that? A terrible rushing team.
That's true.
I don't buy this. Oh, we have 4 really talented running backs that do different things. That's why we don't have a number one. No, that means you don't have a number one running back. We had those
That was a problem last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've been there. We know what that's like. So 2 of them are coming back. Great. Rotate 4 running backs in. They all average, I think they have like 200, 250 yards on the season. Give me the guy with over 1,000 yards. Give me a team that's mad, that's ticked off, on the road, backs against the wall, feel like they need to win now, prove something for a guy. I like the Huskers, and I think this is a perfect matchup for their defense to really get right and do what they do best.
I think a 13-point showing on the road against UCLA would be huge for John Butler's defense. That'd be massive confidence.
You also mentioned how the home field advantage isn't like a typical Big Ten, like we're going to Penn State or the Big House in Michigan. Now this is UCLA who just fired their coach.
I'd love to see it.
Well, Jake, I hope I'm right. I hope you're right.
I hope one of us is right. I'd take it right in the middle, too.
Thank you for stopping by and sharing all that wonderful information with us. And thank you for joining us on another edition of Nebraska Football Now.